webinar series on transforming pedagogies, scope and opportunities in ESL ELT, organized by the Postgraduate Department of English, Sahrdaya College of Advanced Studies, Kodagara, Thrissur, Kerala, in collaboration with Cambridge University Press and Assessment, opened on 22nd May 2024 at 6:40 p.m. with an inaugural session and followed by the technical session engaged by Professor Dr. Lal CA, University of Kerala. 194 attendees from the academic fraternity benefited from the session on Dogma ELT. To introduce the resource person of Day 2, I invite Assistant Professor Asha Sudhish of Sahrdaya College of Advanced Studies, who is also Center Exams Manager, SEM of IA 401 Cambridge Authorized Exam Center, Sahrdaya College. Asha, please.
Good evening, everyone. An honor to introduce Ms. Ruchi Thoma to you all today. Ms. Ruchi's profile displays expertise, innovation, and a steadfast commitment to impactful learning. Her career spans over 25 years, and presently she collaborates with Cambridge University Press and Assessments as lead consultant and master trainer, where she collaborates with Cambridge to channel her extensive knowledge and experience into advancing English language education. Through her training programs, she equips educators with the skills to navigate the complexities of English language teaching and learning, enabling them to effectively guide students towards achieving successful outcomes. In today's session, Ms. Ruchi will delve into what sets apart a competent educator from an exceptional one and the importance of Cambridge teacher certifications for aspiring English educators. On that note, may I add with pride that Sahrdaya College of Advanced Studies is an authorized exam center for Cambridge English qualifications. We train our students for the same, and external candidates are also welcome to approach us for details to attain these international certifications. I've had the privilege of attending day-long sessions by Ruchi ma'am. This, of course, is only an hour long, but we'll make the most of it. So wishing everyone a wonderful session with Ruchi ma'am. Over to you, ma'am. Most welcome.
Thank you very much, Asha, for the very, very generous introduction. I'm not sure how much I deserve it, but thank you. Thank you very much. So hello, everyone, participants. We have a very packed session today. So we'll talk a little bit about ELT. We'll talk about what differentiates ELT from regular sort of English teaching and training. We'll also look a little bit at we'll understand what does benchmarking really mean, because the same way that we can benchmark learners, we can benchmark teachers and trainers as well. As mentioned by ma'am, Cambridge has a very extensive network and a benchmarking expertise as well for both learners and for teachers. But today, of course, we're going to focus on a lot on all of you, and I will be happy to answer any questions at the end of the session or whenever I open it up for sessions. In the meanwhile, I would request all of you to sort of note down any specific queries, etc., because we are on a tight time frame. We'll talk about a little bit about we'll talk about a couple of Cambridge certifications that are relevant to this target to you all, and we'll talk a little bit about the Cambridge English teaching framework, which is something that you can also use as a tool for self-assessment. And I'll show you, everything sort of, a lot of what I'm going to tell you is available in public domain. It's been made available by Cambridge. So I would encourage all of you to follow up on this session with a little bit of self-research and a little bit of, delve more deep into all of these sessions. So let's start a little bit by looking at what does the future look like, because I think for language in particular, there is a lot of talk these days, especially about the impact of generative AI that what does it mean? How does it impact us? So we really just want to talk about right now our learners, and we want to see what does the future sort of look like. Okay, so you have to tell me that you're able to hear the sound as well.
Yes, it's audible.
So I have a question, and we can quickly use the chat box. What did you find surprising about this video? Is there anything that you found that came to you as something that was a surprise or something that you didn't anticipate? What did you find? So very quickly, let's put up on the chat box if somebody can put in, or if you would like to use your mic. Yes. And how is language related, to all of this? We have to understand how language is related to all of this, because all of the things that this video talked about, while I wait for your responses, all of these things, future expects innovators, absolutely. So all of these words, innovation, creativity, problem solving, strategy, collaboration, all of, except how do I express all of this? The jobs, creativity is absolutely the key, right? Today we are also sort of looking at our jobs in a very different manner. And some jobs didn't even exist, and you're now preparing students for the future where we don't know what kind of opportunities are available for them. Yes, absolutely. So some jobs didn't exist. We never heard of this quote unquote word influencer, right? Now influencers are everywhere. Yes, absolutely. So our classroom is now, in a way, the physical boundaries of our classrooms. Life skills over soft skills. Absolutely. Involvement of India's in world job. The role of India, 1 in 4 Indians is going to be part of the global workforce. That has not been invented. Did we ever think of something like, oh, I will be call a cab at my doorstep with the help of an app? We did not imagine these things even as far as, let's say, 10 years back. And but what is the role of language? How does language relate to creativity, innovation, collaboration, problem solving, all of the 21st century skills that we are talking about? How does language, yes, technological revolution in education, to excellent points. Thank you. Language is related because ultimately that is how people will communicate with each other, right? Whether we do it through chats, or we do it through a telephone call, or we do it through some instant messaging. Language remains the key that sort of binds us together. And that's where English starts stepping in and plays a very, very vital role, right? Everybody will agree with the points that are there on the slide. I'm not that kind of presenter who's going to read out every point, but I'm sure all of you will agree that English is the language of the future. It is the language of the present. It is the language of the corporate world. It is the language of technology developments. It is the language of the internet. It is the language of research. Majority of your research articles, for example, are published in English. So in fact, I read about this one study about PhD students. And of course, if it's a study, it's going to be about a limited number of students, but it was a very telling sort of it had a very interesting summary to it, in which basically it said that non-native students of English take 92 as much as 92% time more than native students while reading and researching for their PhD. So that itself tells us that language is no longer about the book, and language is no longer about knowing the grammar rules. Language is no longer about just mugging up a list of words. It's all about application, practicality, and how best we can use it, express ourselves. So my favorite example to give here is, what's the point of having the most innovative solution in the world if I'm not able to express it in a most concise and succinct manner possible? So that's where all of you start. All of you start a very, very critical role in developing language skills in our learners. So we'll take quick a very quick overview. I'm not going to go too much into detail here because I would rather focus on the latter part of the presentation. So the history of ELT, English language teaching for learners who are not native speakers, has also evolved over time. It started with a very basic, translation. I'm translating essentially from what I know from a language that I know into English. A lot of focus on written work. It evolved into the direct method where we started seeing a focus on listening and speaking. Around the mid 20th century, the American Army was largely responsible for developing the audiolingual method where I could listen. So if you remember, all of those of you remember, you had those listening courses like Rapidex and all. They were a big rage in the market for those of you who do. But those of you who don't, so there was this time when it was felt that the more I listen, and it's not a bad thought at all, the more I listen to a language and the more I practice, let's say, pronunciation, my fluency, etc., will improve. This evolved into a more cognitive approach of understanding the language, understanding the applicability of the language, and we started moving closer to where we are today in terms of understanding how English should be taught as a living, breathing organism using skill-based focus, real-life focus, task-based focus, etc. 70s onwards, we started seeing a lot of change towards communication, interaction, function, and we are seeing now activities with specific outcomes. Task-based teaching is where we are very, very focused on, and any Cambridge certification or qualification for language will expect teachers and trainers to be very aware of how you want to have a learner-centric, task-based, based on real-life situations, rooted in real-life scenarios, and have activities with specific outcomes. So say, for example, even self-introduction. Can we have an activity where we don't just read about self-introduction, but we actually practice, say, for example. And now, of course, there is an extensive use of digital tools. We are seeing a lot of impact, as I mentioned earlier, of generative AI, a lot of focus on LSRW, listening, reading, writing, and speaking. We are seeing a lot of focus on developing and testing and benchmarking LSRW skills, because somebody could be very good, and I'm sure you'll all agree with me, somebody could be very good at listening, but not very good at writing a language. So we've started looking at language from the point of view of how do all of these, of course, all of them together will make for a proficient level speaker, user of the language. But generally, we've seen that listening skills improve the first, because I think that is the way we naturally acquire the language as well. A lot of learner focus on personalized instruction. We're seeing blended learning now, a lot of use of technology, of apps, of even tools that help you write better, tools that help you assess. And when I talk about technology, I just don't mean technology that helps learners. I also refer to technology that helps teachers and trainers. Say, for example, Cambridge has a Cambridge has a tool called Write and Improve, where it takes the burden, a little bit of burden off teachers of, actually checking for spelling errors and punctuation errors, so that teachers can then focus on what are the ideas behind this writing piece that the student has produced versus looking at the grammar structure and the sentence types, etc. And then, of course, very, very important, what is happening world across is benchmarking of skills and language. How are these? Yes. How are these? How are these skills benchmarked for learners? How can I say? So when I meet somebody for the first time, and I'm going to refer to a gentleman from your state now, in a short while from now. So when we meet somebody for the first time, and I can see we are 101 people on this call right now. And if you meet somebody for the first time, all of us can come across with a very different impression of this person's skills. Oh, somebody can say, oh, he was excellent. I met this gentleman and he was excellent. Or I met her and she was so good at speaking. And I may say, no. I was like, I thought it's average, for the simple reason that a lot depends on the situation on which you meet a person, right? You may bump into me at the airport and I may be very tired at the end of the day. I have just traveled, I've had a long, hectic 3-day travel. And yesterday evening, I was like, I don't even want to see anybody. So at that point of time, anybody who meets me is going to say, oh, she's like, she answered in monosyllables. I don't think I can, really say how well does Ruchi speak. So because yes, that's a very valid question. I will answer questions at about whether students use or misuse technology. I will do that at the end of the session, because that's also part of our responsibility to guide a little bit better. I will take time for questions. Don't worry about that. So coming back to, like I said, I'm going to refer to a gentleman from your state, Mr. Shashi Tharoor. We have all heard of him. Yes, yes, we have all heard of him. Correct? Now, we are very impressed. We are all very impressed. I am personally a big fan, because I think I really appreciate the way he sort of promotes the language very indirectly. But for an average student, what would an average student say? Would you say that he's a very impactful communicator? I'm not talking about language skills, I'm talking about communication. So sometimes people go scurrying for their dictionaries, right? Sometimes even we will go scurrying for our dictionaries to see, oh, what did he mean by this word? So communication has to be very much based on the receiver as well. If I'm writing something, if my reader is not able to understand, I may have written something very brilliant, but I may have used such esoteric vocabulary. I may have used such, difficult to understand sentence structures, right? So now communication is not just about the person who is communicating, it's also about the person who's receiving the communication. And that's where ELT teachers start playing a very, very big role. Because when we start looking at listening, reading, speaking, and writing, and we start looking at the skills and the sub skills, we are able to, in many ways, work better with our learners, with our students, and we are able to focus more on the learner. So now these are just a few examples, and I'm sure there's a longer list which we can put out here. Is that why is it important to have a learner centric and an activity centric and a task based centric classroom? Because any Cambridge qualification that we will talk about in a short while from now will encourage you to think about, I have a list of words. Let me just take a vocabulary example. Oh, I have a list of words. What's the best way that I can get my learners to not just learn the words, but also employ, use, deploy the vocabulary, right? So that is where now task is. So if I make a word ladder, the chances of my learners becoming uh, more engaged with the learning become much higher, versus just writing out the list of words on the board and telling them to take out a dictionary and this thing. So you will find a lot of such examples in any Cambridge qualification when you start going into the nitty-gritty, you will find. So for me, the most important is the improved learning outcomes on this list. Is that if I have improved learning outcomes, if students are engaged, if they are participating, you will find a lot of difference from the manner in which currently students are doing. And believe me when I tell you that I have personally seen multiple examples of students very weak at pre-A1, A1 level, improving language skills with the right inputs from the teachers and their trainers. So we'll now move, because we have, like I said, a very tight time frame. We're going to start talking about a couple of Cambridge qualifications, and we are again going to see a very short video, and then we're going to talk about very, very specific qualifications. So till now, what we have spoken about is we have spoken about why English, what's the need for English, a very quick overview of what is ELT, because it's very different from typical anthology-based English language teaching and training. And we've spoken about, and we've moved now our focus to learners and to skills. So now, to equip ourselves to be more impactful teachers, to have better results, to achieve success on behalf of our students, we also have to start looking at the way we teach English in a very, very different manner. And I'm sure some of you are already doing it. And this is just a great refresher for you. And you can always share your point of view with others. And for some, it may be absolutely new. So we've got a healthy mix of people here. So let's see a little bit about
I always wanted to be an English teacher. People remember the teachers that meant something to them, that inspired them. They saw them for who they could be, recognized their potential, and helped them reach it. Becoming that teacher is who I want to be, to motivate my students, to support their learning, and help them reach their goals. Learning a language is an exciting journey, but it isn't straightforward. Every learner needs support and encouragement, and every learner is different. I wasn't sure I'd have the skills to help all my students succeed. My Cambridge English teaching qualification gave me the knowledge and confidence to teach English. It also provided me real-life teaching experience and the skills to be able to find the right approach for the different challenges students face day to day. There are times where learning English can be challenging. I understand. I've been there too. The practical skills and knowledge I gained from taking a teaching qualification helped me to understand how my students learn English, how I can help them overcome their challenges, and keep them motivated throughout their learning journey. And I'm happy I've given them the confidence to succeed. Moments like these make it all worthwhile. I am proud to have the opportunity to help my students realize their potential and achieve their goals. Become the teacher you want to be.
just a very, very quick sort of sneak peek into some Cambridge English qualifications and thing. So let me just get back to my presentation. A little bit of toggling is required, so please bear with me. Thank you so much. So why certification? And I want all of you to look at this, and this is a very important slide. Now, what does it mean for you as a teacher? Does it mean that you improve your teaching skills? And if there is anything else that you would I'd like to this, and I would like you to rank this. You know, that what are the top 3 reasons that anybody or you would pick up a certification and follow a path. So one of the 21st century skills that UNESCO and all major corporates keep talking about, and anybody who does sessions will say that lifelong learning. We are now talking about an opportunity where You sit, you focus, and you use your opportunities to learn, to expand your own knowledge base and your own skill base and your own professional qualifications. And not everything necessarily has to be done through very formal education sort of a setup. We all know that already. Now, if you look at all of these, I want you to identify for yourself, why would you pick up a certification? Is it because you want to improve your teaching skills? Is it because very obviously a certification will open certain doors for you? It will open opportunities which previously may not have been necessarily viable to you. Professional credibility, a Cambridge certification will always give you the professional credibility because of the high norms and the benchmarking and the stringent manner in which these certifications are given. It helps to develop self-confidence that yes, I have now improved my own knowledge base as a teacher. I've improved my skills. I'm in a better position to help my learners. This is a pathway for professional development for me. I not only do that, I also network. And most importantly, my students' outcomes improve. That means my students' language skills can improve along, let's say, if we take the CFR level. So for yourself, I want you to identify the top 3 reasons. And that is for you, that is not for me. That if you have to pick up a certification, what are the top 3? Because we can't have a laundry list. You can't have, say, I want to achieve 10 things because I want to do a certification. If ideally you will bring it down to 1, great. But I think 3 is a good number. People like 3. 2 is too less. 4 is too many. 3 is just the right number. You'll always find top 3, or top 10. You rarely find top 7 list or top 8 list of something. So for yourself, you need to understand is what do I want to do? Like, where am I right now? Where do I see myself 2 years from now? Where do I see myself 5 years from now? What role will a professional certification play in my professional journey? And identify it and then work towards it, right? So I want to take a little time to talk about something called the Cambridge English Teaching Framework. If you take this term and you put it into Google, you will find the Cambridge English Teaching Framework, which is also important for self-analysis, right? It's also important for you as a teacher to understand that where am I right now? And it helps identify teachers, identify where they are right now in the professional career, and also helps teachers and employers think about what's the next thing that I need to do, right? Because certifications and all are fine, but you first need to find out where you are, where you need to be, and what do you need to do in order to reach the next sort of stage. So the Cambridge English Teaching Framework has these 5 parameters, which you can see on the left side, my left side of the screen. So I will assume it is coming. So learning and the learner, teaching, learning, and assessment. Language ability, that means your language ability as a teacher. Language knowledge and awareness, again, relates to you. And professional development and values. And any Cambridge English certification for teachers will refer back implicitly and explicitly both to this framework. And for each of these, let's say for learning and the learner, there is defined 4 stages: foundation, developing, proficient, and expert. So you can identify yourself that, oh, learning and the learner, am I at a developing stage? Am I at a foundation stage? Am I at a proficient stage? Similarly, teaching, learning, and assessment. Similarly, language ability. Similarly, language knowledge and awareness. You have these 4. So before we end, I'll try and show it to you. I'll show you a PDF of what this is. Now, what is the benefit of a framework like this? Is number one, it's very clear that these are my parameters. What I see here are my parameters on which an English teacher should be working on. So I should be working on my own language. I should be working on assessment, because any learning outcome, that how do I actually benchmark my students towards the right assessments? If I'm teaching them, how do I actually know that they have improved? Right? So how can I assess them better? What kind of professional development values do I need? And how do I keep the focus on the learner? And language knowledge and awareness is all about using the skill-based and the task-based format to develop skills. So say, for example, let me just give you a very small example. I'm going to just stop sharing this for now. So to talk about, let's say, listening, I'm just going to take up one skill, just give you an example of what I'm talking about. So let's say listening. All right. So suppose I was at an extremely crowded airport yesterday, and so multiple announcements will happen at an airport. or a railway station, is it not? So, but when I'm listening and I'm paying attention, I'm hearing all the time, flight number so and so, flight number so and so. But when will my ears perk up? When I hear my flight number being announced, or my boarding's been announced for flight 187 from Guwahati to Hyderabad. Okay, yes. Now I need to start paying attention. I need to look up for whatever I'm doing. Now, in the same way, if you're listening to me right now, you're going to try and get the key information out of this. You're trying to get a summary of what I'm trying to say. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you understand that by giving you a sort of a quick summary from time to time. If you have to listen to a conversation or a dialogue, yes, you would all look at how the flow of conversation is. What are the discourse markers? How are people agreeing or disagreeing with each other? Or how is the conversation being extended? And listening for tone and opinion. How does tonality, intonation impact understanding of opinion? Because understanding of opinion, expression of opinion, justification of opinion will fall into, let's say, independent users at a B1, B2 level of language. Say, for example, if I say, oh, it's a great idea, am I being positive? Am I being negative? Or am I being, I don't know? From my tone, can you make out? What am I being? If I say, oh, it's a great idea, I'm going to switch off my camera for a minute so that you're not able to see my expressions. Yes, I'm looking for answers in the chat box. If I say, oh, it's a great idea, what is my tone here? Positive. Thank you, Madhurima. Thank you, Shamita. I'm in agreement with someone. Absolutely. Now, if I say, yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah, it's a great idea. Now, yes, it's a great idea. Still positive, but was it as positive as before? Yeah, a bit doubtful. Absolutely. And saying, it's a great idea. Now what is happening? I'm actually going into negatives. So while listening, I even became sarcastic. Thank you, Maria. I was waiting for that word. So I became like a little, it's a great idea. But what happens while reading? Right? What happens when reading? By reading, I don't have intonation. I don't have intonation. I don't have word stress. I don't have, and of course, when if you're not face to face, you don't have any body language and meta language telling you that, oh, what my tone is. So any skill based focus will take these skills and sub skills into consideration and work accordingly. Okay. All right. So now we are going back to the presentation. I'd like to just go back to it. And we are going to now talk about CELTA. How many of you here are aware of CELTA or have heard about it or know something about it? Yes, you've heard about it. What is the full form of CELTA? Shamita knows. Dr. Vyom Kesari says you've heard about it. Great. What is the full form of CELTA? It's a certificate, so it's a voluminous. I'm just going to read it out once for you. Certificate in Teaching English to Speakers of other languages. All right, so we're going to start talking about CELTA, which is the gold standard teaching qualification. You will find from Cambridge. It is directly from the Cambridge University. And we deliver this, the university delivers this through its various partners across the world. And it is essentially the gold standard for English language certification. And it is also an entry-level qualification for many types of roles and jobs in particular. It is the most widely recognized teaching qualification of the world, requested by employers. And if you look at the last one, English language teaching jobs, especially internationally, require a CELTA sort of certification. So it is also, and I'm telling you right now, an extremely rigorous and a very, 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 intensive program, right? It's an extremely intensive program. You can do CELTA even if you have no experience, or you have some experience in teaching language and you want to make a transition from being from being an English teacher, you may have specialized in the language and you want to move to teaching of English as a second language. It's very good for people who are looking for opportunities abroad, who want to teach. Many opportunities open up for teachers who are CELTA certified and wish to go and study abroad. And when I talk about teaching English abroad, I just don't mean the native English speaking countries. I also mean non-native English speaking countries, where, let's say, countries, to just name a few, where English is, say, for example, in Spain. If you want to look for a job in Europe, for example, you will find that a CELTA certification is almost mandatory for you. These are the qualifications. You have to be 18 or above. You have to have a standard of education of equivalent to that required into higher education, because this differs from country to country. So this is what we need, an equivalent. So I would assume that you would want to be at least looking at a graduation. And your own language skills, if you remember the Cambridge English teaching framework, it had a reference to language ability. Your own language skills need to be a CFR C1 and above. Right? Because if your language is not going to be CFC1 or above, you are not going to be able to work with students from level of, let's say, A1 to B2. And the program is designed in such a manner that your language skills, it's not meant to teach you English, it's meant to develop your teaching skills as a teacher. Okay. So this is what the course enables you to do. I'm not going to sort of read out the slide, but essentially it focuses on developing skills in teachers for adult learners in real life context so that you can work across the world. There are three ways in which you can take. You can take face-to-face, you can take online, and you can take a mix of face-to-face and online. So the CELTA course has these 5 topics. And if you look at these 5 topics, they correlate to the teaching framework. And that is why I wanted to introduce the teaching framework to you first, is that they will correlate to learners, language analysis, skills of LSRW, planning resources for different teaching contexts. And context can also mean different abilities of learners, and developing teaching skills and professionalism. For a language teacher, say, for example, how to give feedback is a very critical skill. Because when learners put themselves out there and you're asking them to speak or you're asking them to participate, giving feedback which is result oriented will be very impactful. So when we look at the 4 skills, we look at reading, listening, speaking, and writing. How we receive the language. We learn a language by listening to it. We can also learn more about a language by reading to it. So suppose you had to shift to another state, or if I had to shift to another state, my first exposure to the language would be through listening, because that is a natural acquisition method. We first naturally acquire a basic of language through listening. So these are my receptive skills, which can improve with self-improvement and practice as well. So I may not need, suppose I want to learn Spanish. What was that very famous show on Netflix? I'm forgetting. It was in Spanish with English translations, and I think I learned at least 40, 50 phrases of Spanish from that. Money Heist, right? So similar languages you can pick up through just by listening. And reading, of course, is a higher order skill in terms of receptiveness. But productive skills, writing and speaking, cannot improve without feedback unless you are giving indication to a student where they went wrong, what they can do to fix their mistake in pronunciation, for example, or fluency, for example. But how to give that feedback is equally important. So things like that will sort of get covered in teaching skills and professionalism. It is 120 contact hours. It usually takes about 40 odd days for a CELTA course. There is an entire selection process which you have to go through. You have to apply for CELTA. You can look at it online. In India, mostly it is British Council who is delivering the CELTA. You can look at various partners there. And there is 6 hours of teaching practice. There is feedback given to you on your teaching practice, observation, peer observation. And in addition to this 120 hours, you have to allow for 80 additional learning hours for pre-course preparation, because it has standard requirements that you have to follow. So there is a selection process which you have to apply for CELTA, and you have to come back. Yes, Rose, thank you for Money Heist. So like I said, CELTA is very intensive, very rigorous. It's like when you finish your CELTA, you're like, oh God, now I need like a 3-month break because now this has been really tough. But it is also a very, very rewarding and a very, sort of universal this thing, certification. The cost is on the higher side. I'm going to be very, very clear with you. The cost is on the higher side as far as CELTA is concerned, for the simple reason that it's giving you a different sort of skill set. There are obviously certain things involved with it, but I'm just sort of giving you that brief right now. So if you look at this, it's generally, I know people take 2 to 3 months at least to prepare for the application, in my experience. And once they are through, then these 120 hours, which like I said, are roughly over 40-45 days, sometimes even a month, they they are very, very intensive. And generally the the ratio of the CELTA trainer to the teacher trainees is 1:6, and each course is run by two certified trainers on behalf of Cambridge. So coming to results, there are 4 grades here: fail, pass, pass A, and pass B. So considering the investment of not just money, but also of time and effort. So this is a very sort of, it's a research-based decision. You have to go through, your language skills have to be at a C1. You need to see, again, like I said, use the framework to see where you are, where you need to be, develop your skills. So the next qualification or certification that I'm going to talk about is the teaching knowledge test. Okay. This is an entirely self-propelled certification. There are no contact hours with anybody, but there is a lot of material that you can use. Some of our partners run teaching knowledge test training programs as well. It's modular. That is the one benefit of TKT, is it is modular. It tests your knowledge in specific areas of English. It is also a globally recognized certificate. So there is no such thing, oh, this is better. They serve 2 very different requirements, the TKT. You can take any modules and you get a certificate for each module. It has 3 modules. I'll just show you the modules first. It has 3 modules, which again correlate back to the Cambridge English teaching framework: background to language learning and teaching, resource planning, and managing the teaching and learning. You have these 3 modules. It's a paper and pencil test. Okay. It's a paper and pencil test. Thank you, Sumit, for your compliment. It's a paper and pencil test, so you can take module 1 now. You can prepare for 1 module at a time. So in terms of, it's not that it's not intensive or it is not rigorous. It allows you to pace out a little bit better on the basis of your personal and professional commitments. I'm just going to go back here. It's for new and experienced teachers. It's recommended for teachers with an English level of B1 or above versus CELTA, which was at C1. This is applicable for primary, secondary, or adult learners, TKT. Like I said, there is no such thing, oh, this is a higher qualification or this is a lower qualification. Both qualifications serve a different purpose. All right. And teachers who want, and again, it is a globally recognized certificate. In addition to these 3 modules, you have 2 specialist modules for TKT, and this is what makes this a very unique examination. It says content and language integrated learning. This is meant for teachers who do not teach English. Let's say I'm a biology teacher, but it is meant for how well am I using language, or how well am I using English to teach biology, for example. That's the simplest way I can explain it, the CLIL part. And then there is a TKT module for young learners would relate to primary school and below children, let's say ages maybe 5 to 10 or 12 approximately, whatever comprises this primary school. So if somebody wants to specialize in how to teach language to a very young 4-year-old child, 6-year-old child, 8-year-old child, then in addition to the 3 modules, this is something that can be done. Again, the modules can be taken separately. The CLIL module is generally not taken by English teachers. It is taken by teachers who use English as a medium of instruction. So the TKT does not have a pass or fail. I'm just going to take another couple of more minutes and then we'll open the floor for questions. The TKT does not have a pass or a fail. It gives you these 4 grades, 4, 3, 2, 1, starting from extensive knowledge and coming down to limited sort of knowledge. So there's no such things as, so it's also in terms of financial investment, it's, I think, because it's something that we are not directly involved with, I think it is between 4 to 5,000 rupees per module. So in terms of a financial investment, you can do, but however, you need to pay per module, and you have to, of course, work with one of the test delivery centers to find out when the next test is. It is a completely paper and pencil test. All preparation is self-driven. Yes, all preparation is self-driven. There's a lot of material on the Cambridge English site as well. So I'm just showing you a slide, and if you notice, I have not mentioned delta at all, because that is something that I would not personally recommend anybody to do, and that requires a very different sort of setup. So you can just have a quick, you can take a screenshot of this, and you also find it on the Cambridge English site, and it tells you about the candidate requirements, that what is the teaching experience needed. It talks about the entry requirement, because Delta requires teacher, and generally the route for Delta is through CELTA. People first do CELTA, teach for a couple of years and do. I am not covering it in this session, but I'm just introducing it to you so that you know that, oh, there is something beyond CELTA as well. These are my qualifications sort of features. The TKT is, of course, a module-based test. There is coursework. There is which can be taken pre-service. What is it? And assessed teaching. So in Delta and in CELTA, you will have assessed teaching. So I've tried to give you a very quick overview of what Cambridge offers to you as teachers. It also offers a lot of free resources to prepare for these. You can just go to Cambridge English Works website and explore. And I am now going to be answering questions. So it's a fast-paced session, as I mentioned earlier, but I do hope that you have been able to take away some important points for your own professional development from this. These are worldwide qualifications. They have acceptance across the world, and that's what sort of differentiates it from a lot of other qualifications that exist. So now I'll be happy to answer any questions. We can use the chat box. If there is a permission to use mic, you can use mic. We can do that now.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for shedding light on the qualifications and training that could empower present as future teacher educators, English teacher educators. I'm sure there are questions brewing in the participants' minds. You may unmute and ask a question or put them up on the chat box. Meanwhile, please do make sure filling up the feedback form as well. Participants, you can put up your questions on the chat box if you have any.
How does CELTA compare to TESOL or TFL certifications? TESOL is essentially a very different certification, and a lot of people seem to think that it is a parallel, but TESOL is actually meant for young learners mostly. So the focus of TESOL is very different from what a CELTA certification would do. That's what I can say. Is CELTA equivalent? There is no chart, sir, in the world that will tell you CELTA is equivalent, but I do know people choose to do TESOL as well. But like I said, the focus of both the certifications is very different. Teaching English as a second language and teaching English to non-native speakers require different. Beck and Cambridge English teaching different, ma'am. Beck actually, sir, has now been phased out by Cambridge. It is certainly very, very different. Beck, the test has been replaced by a new avatar called LinguaSkill. How would I come to know? And I think, Rose, I will not be unfortunately be able to answer the question about why you were not selected in person training. I would recommend that you look at the Cambridge English framework to see where you could have sort of improved your application in terms of these things. So now I'm looking at some other questions. Assessment of soft skills has always been a problem. I can speak about language, sir. Soft skills will fall into a very different domain, but it is largely about using 3 or 4 levels and categorizing into terms of ability versus giving global statements. Somebody is saying, I'm a college lecturer. Can you suggest a job abroad in universities? Then I would recommend CELTA because it has more universal application, and especially CELTA is meant for young adults. So I just want to ask how to speak, but imagine it's very different. This is a very difficult question for me to answer, but practice makes perfect, and fluency comes with practice. For speaking, we look at both things: spoken production and spoken interaction. I would look at doing a lot of. I personally find reading into the mirror very impactful even today. So again, a lot of people are asking what kind of certificate course. Individual universities will have different requirements, but they would require you to have a very high level yourself, let's say C1 or above. And why would anybody go for CELTA and not PGDT from IFRO, ma'am? Again, this is depending on you, whether you would want to do a postgraduate diploma in teaching of English from IFRO, which requires you to have an MA in English, right? So sometimes people would prefer to do something that does not require that much time. I have a lot of respect for the PGDT. I am from Hyderabad. I am based out of here. IFLU, I know, is a very, very venerated and a very unique institution in our country. And it is just a matter of personal choice, sir. There is Shomita. It's not that there is any challenge with either doing CELTA or PGDT. Both are very, very valuable qualifications for English. Sometimes people feel that, oh, I'm not able to go for a PGDT because first I have to finish my MA, then I have to do a certificate in teaching of English, and then I have to do a postgraduate diploma. So sometimes people find that curve a little harder or more time consuming to do, so they decide to do something which is more. Yes, lingua skill is definitely going to help, Anju. It is meant for a test for both employability and for education. Yes. TESOL, CELTA. I not again, like I said, there is no chart. I can only speak about CELTA because it is the most accepted qualification. That is why. Okay, so we had a lot of questions about what do I need to go abroad. So my advice to you would be is look at the country, look at the university, and see what they need, right? Because they will need some minimum minimum academic qualifications as well. So first, see if you meet those. Secondly, something like CELTA always helps on your sort of own resume. I will just take a minute to show you where you can find, because somebody had a question about, one of you had a question about, I applied for CELTA, or how do I know whether I'm ready for CELTA? That's very important because even applying for CELTA is a very, so I'm just going to share a tab and I'm just going to show you. If I just go and Google Cambridge English teaching framework, right? You'll be able to see this entire framework. It is a free to download resource, as you can see, and you will be able to find any information that you need. Of course, this is about part of how was it developed. And if I go back and I go to the framework summary, you will find it tells you exactly what is a foundational level skill, what is a developing level skill, what is a proficient level skill, what is an expert level skill. So something like CELTA would want you to be at a proficient level for language ability, right? So then you look at the CFR statements. This framework should help you decide which qualification you would want to take up and why. Any other questions? You can just go to the Cambridge English website. You can just go. There's an unknown user who said to acquire SLT. You can just go to the Cambridge English website and you will find a list of. You'll find, I think British Council is listed out there, so you'll have to go via the British Council for CELTA.
Right, ma'am. Thank you so much for patiently answering all the questions in a jiffy. You could read out the questions and answer them simultaneously. It was really fun listening, actually, to the answering too. And they were really informative. As we close, I believe there are no more questions. Do we have more questions?
Yeah, I think everybody wants to know the pathway for how they can go about. I would just suggest go to the Cambridge English site, look at it, and you will find British Council there. And therefore, you will find that because now the number of British Council centers are limited, you will find that they have launched online and hybrid. So sometimes people find it difficult to travel and stay in a new place. So then you can decide what kind you want to take, what version you want to take, one of the CELTA. Yes, I wish you all success in whatever you do. I wish your learners success, because I personally feel that any session like this, if somebody is able to take it and move their way around and their learners benefit, if your learners benefit from it, then I think a lot gets done. The impact becomes more, and I feel that yes, I have been of some help to all of you. So I wish you all success. Thank you very much, ma'am and sirs, for giving me this opportunity to interact with so many participants. And I'd like to thank the college. I'd like to thank the organizing the English department, and I'll be happy to help out in any other sort of sessions. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am, so much. It was really informative and helpful for the future teachers as well. May I now call upon Begum Johanna TS, second year BA English, Association Secretary, to propose a note of gratitude.
Dear esteemed guests, dignitaries and participants, on behalf of the Postgraduate Department of English, Sahrdaya College of Advanced Studies, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for making this national webinar series a resounding success. We are deeply grateful for your participation and engagement. We would like to extend our special thanks to Ms. Ruchi Toma, consultant at Cambridge University Press and Assessment, for her insightful and informative session. Her expertise and knowledge have enriched our understanding and inspired us to strive for excellence. We would like to extend our sincere thanks to Ms. Asha Sudesh, Assistant Professor and Central Exam Controller, Sahrdaya College of Advanced Studies, for introducing our esteemed chief guest to the audience. Her warm and thoughtful introduction set the tone for a fascinating session, and we are grateful for her efforts. We are also grateful for our moderator, Ms. Nati Chaudhary, for facilitating the sessions and ensuring a seamless experience for all participants. To our dear participants, we are thankful for your active involvement. Your enthusiasm and passion for learning have made this webinar series a truly engaging experience for all of us. Thank you once again to everyone involved for your presence, contributions, and commitment to lifelong learning. We look forward to future collaborations and opportunities to learn from each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I have posted a link. There were a lot